Now my staff has been introduced earlier. They're all sitting at this table. There's 5 of them that came here with me and Jeannie today. It's because in some of their spouses. We make this a high priority. Good. So that's why they are here. And I think you all may know Gregory Carlson is now the 5th District Chairman. And he's off to a great start. And I also want to say I'm really glad to see Lauren Boebert here today. And Lauren, it's an honor to serve with you. You are a spark plug. I would hope that the press recognizes that, hey, this is someone to match up with AOC. Unfortunately, we have a liberal press, and they're not going to give you the credit that you deserve. Right. However, you can hold your own more than enough with her any time of the day. And she's doing a great job representing all of Western Colorado. That's a district, I've heard it's bigger than the state of Florida. It's geographically huge, it's beautiful, it's got great people, great counties, and who knows what's going to happen in the next congressional redistricting. Colorado does pick up an 8th congressional district, which will be an open seat, and every other district is going to get a little smaller because we have to make room for that 8th district. And I don't know what's going to happen with the 5th congressional district. I hope it continues to include Fremont County, but there's no guarantee of that. And so I'm feeling a little nostalgic today, and so if you will indulge me, I'm going to go over some of the things that I've really worked my tail off to serve you and be your representative for over these last 15 years. And I'm just going to kind of recap that because I'm feeling nostalgic. Now, before I went into the state legislature, Congress, I was in the state legislature for 12 years. 3 in the House and 9 in the Senate. And I was able to do some great things there, like protecting the Second Amendment, the Shooting Range Protection Act, which I introduced and became law. I had a law that protected school kids' right to say the Pledge of Allegiance. To protect life, I had a law that prohibited the sale of fetal body parts. But the biggest one of all, maybe, was I was the architect of the biggest tax cut in Colorado history. I worked 3 years on that. I worked 3 years on that, and it finally became law when we got rid of Ward Romer and we had Bill Owens. We had a Republican finally. And it reduced our income tax from 5.0 to 4.75. It was reduced once more after that in a smaller amount. But that has saved Colorado taxpayers billions of dollars over the last 20 years and has kept government smaller at the same time. And since I've been in Congress, I've got some great things that I've been able to do. Creating a national cemetery in El Paso County, a national veterans cemetery. That was the first bill I ever introduced in Congress, and I asked them to file it the first day. They said, well, we have to draft it, it's going to take all night. So I filed it my second day in office. And sure enough, even though I was in the minority, I worked with everybody, and the delegation was very helpful on this. I'll give them all credit. And we have now a national veterans cemetery just right up the road in El Paso County. I brought an ICE office to Colorado Springs, a VA super clinic to Colorado Springs. But one thing that I've really devoted myself to, there are a lot of issues I've really devoted myself to. You can't do everything. You have to specialize. And Lauren, you're learning that fast, I think, because there's just so much going on. But one of the things I've specialized on is protecting Israel. Is strengthening the U.S.-Israel relationship. I was the one who doubled the funding through my amendment for Iron Dome when it was first created as a joint project between the two countries. And now that's saving hundreds or even thousands of lives. I introduced, and it became law, the Taylor Force Act, which says that U.S. taxpayer dollars will not go to the Palestinian Authority as long as they're doing pay to slay, where they pay jailed terrorists or their families if the terrorists died in the attack for killing Jews. They should not be rewarded, and until they change their policy, where I can send their money. Well, that worked under Trump. He complied with that, but Joe Biden is trying to reverse that, which is illegal, actually, and wrong. And I introduced money to do tunnel detection and defeat. So that's saved lives because they've been blowing up a lot of tunnels. And funding for Arrow 2 and 3 and David Sling, which are anti-ballistic missiles, not short range like I know, but ballistic missiles that would come in from Iran and shoot those down. And I'm working on now a new program, and I introduced the language, and this is now a joint program between our two countries to create Iron Beam, which is using lasers or directed energy to shoot down incoming missiles and rockets. And that's not yet operational, but when it does become operational, that's going to be a huge game changer because you can shoot down missiles at the speed of light. And it'll be a lot cheaper too. But I've done with my staff's help, I've been able to do great things for my constituents. In all the 5 counties I have the honor of representing. We've helped recover millions of dollars for constituents who were owed something from an agency or a department of the federal government. We've brought people home who were stranded overseas. We've reunited families. We've kept a lot of businesses open during the COVID. And we have gotten life-saving medical treatment in a number of cases for people who needed it from the VA or Social Security. So serving constituents has always been a big priority of mine. And even people who are on the other party recognize that, or have no party at all. They recognize that that's a priority with us, and they respect that. And you can do that whether you're in the minority or the majority, which is good, because I've been in both. Also, I work on values a lot, traditional values. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Values Action Team. And we do things like protecting life, promoting family values, defending religious liberty, especially in the military. In fact, one issue I'm working on right now, maybe you've heard of Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer. And he was let go by Space Force. Unfortunately, he was relieved of command. They're still doing an investigation for a final disposition. But they're saying that when he did his podcast talking about critical race theory, that he crossed the line. He became political. He used the word Democrat Party. And so he became political, even though he was wearing his civilian clothing in those podcasts. We've listened to every word of every podcast, and we don't think it was political. And I talked with the 4-star who runs Space Force, and right now we're not agreeing at all. And I've enlisted a whole bunch of other representatives to help me push back on that. But when you go in the military, you don't lose your First Amendment rights. You still have freedom of speech. You have to respect the chain of command, yes, but you still have the First Amendment. Also, I supported President Trump. In 2016, you may remember, he had some rough patches during the campaign, and many Republicans, unfortunately, threw him under the bus, but not me. Nope. I stayed with him the whole time. He became president and his policies. I'm not saying I liked every one of his tweets, but his policies were so good for our country, and I so much wish he was still there.
I do too.
I've had the opportunity in my 15 years in Congress of strengthening national security. I am co-chair right now of the Missile Defense Caucus, the Directed Energy Caucus, Space Force Caucus, and some others. On HASC, the House Armed Services Committee, I've introduced hundreds of amendments which have become law in the National Defense Authorization Act every year. I'm currently ranking member of the Readiness Subcommittee. There are 7 subcommittees on HASC, and this one has a portfolio of $300 billion. And that's the biggest dollar subcommittee in Congress. So I'm the ranking Republican on that subcommittee. Now, even before I was on that committee, and actually I've only done a little bit in terms of local funding through my work on that committee, but in the 15 years I've been in Congress, $3 billion have come to the Pikes Peak region for military construction. That's an average of $200 million a year. Now that's not military spending, that's military construction. The spending is way beyond that. This enhances national security, and I'll be very parochial here, it does create local jobs. So it's a win-win situation. So I am going to, by the way, I pledge I will do everything I can in the future, and I've been doing this up until now, to make sure no Guantanamo Bay detainees ever come to America. And, you know what I'm going to say next, never come to Fremont County. Because that's where they would come. They would come here.
Supermax is okay.
Supermax is okay.
I don't even want them in Supermax. If they set foot on U.S. soil, you can get a soft-headed federal judge who will now give them all kinds of constitutional rights that they don't have on Cuban soil.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference. Now, as a fiscal conservative, and I'm going to wrap up here, but as a fiscal conservative, I've never voted for a tax increase, state or federal.
Good.
I've been given high marks, if not perfect marks, by groups like American Taxpayer Union, Citizens Against Government Waste, Heritage Foundation, American Prosperity, and others. I've voted against all of Joe Biden's big spending proposals, as Lauren has as well. I've voted for countless measures to reduce our national debt and reduce our annual deficit. And I've done all these things, folks, representing you in Congress, and I've kept one of the most conservative voting records in Congress. So, wherever the congressional lines are drawn, and wherever I end up, wherever Fremont County ends up, I will continue to do everything I can to defend the Constitution and Christian and conservative values. And I'm going to just finish on a real positive note here. The next elections, I think, are going to be really good for the U.S. House.
I hope so.
We are going to take back the majority. And here's why I say that. We are behind by 5. If we flip 5 seats, we are in control. Nancy Pelosi is history.
That's what we want, yeah.
Just redistricting in states that are picking up seats like Texas, North Carolina, Florida, are going to probably give us the 5 right there. But the average historical swing in a off-year first presidential term is 23. That's the average. So we only need 5. So we are going to take back the majority, but not just because of the numbers and because of math, because their policies are so bad. They are failing the American people. Joe Biden, didn't he run as a centrist or a moderate or a middle of the road compared to Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris or any of those? He maybe was more moderate, but he is totally in the hip pocket of the progressives. I call him the extreme left of the Democrat Party. And he is ruling as an extreme liberal. There's no other way to put it. So the policies are failing the American people. That's another reason why we're going to take back the majority next year. It's only 20 months away. And we are going to take back the majority. 20 months until January, actually 18 months until the election in November. So folks, I'm really excited. Like I say, I love Fremont County. I hope the districts continue to be combined with El Paso County. Maybe you'll end up with someone really great like Lauren Boebert. Who knows? But thanks for letting me be here. And like I said, I've been coming to these for more than 15 years, and you are close to me. I see a lot of old friends. I see some new friends. some I want to get to know. And thank you for all the amazing help that you've been to Jeannie and I. And I'll do everything I can to continue helping you. My step. In fact, I already have one person that's come up to me and said, I need help with such and such. An issue with the Bureau of Land Management. So that's what my staff is here for. And so grab one of them before we go if you need help with one of these bureaucracies in the federal government that are so prevalent with nameless, faceless bureaucrats. Thank you again, and God bless Fremont County, God bless America.